for kind of our next step, we're gonna do shading. And I wanna do it on some basic objects. I normally do a full class on this, but just enough so we can apply it to your animal and people drawings. So that's what today is about. I have some objects here. I've got my nice new little lamp that I love. It's rechargeable and it just folds up. Look at that.
Wow, where'd you get that?
Amazon. I saw there was one over here. She had one over here. I thought, that's cool, but hers has to be plugged in.
Oh, yeah.
This one I charge and I can move it around. You know, on a Zoom, I can put it behind, so I'm
That's
good.
really
I can
good.
use it for when I'm videoing stuff down here. It has nice even light. So I'm so excited about it. I bought another one.
Did you cover up part of it so that it,
Is it tape on?
I did, because when it casts a shadow, each little light on here casts
yeah,
a shadow.
So you wanted it more
So I
focused.
covered it so it's just
Yeah.
more focused with
Okay.
hopefully, actually it ends up being two shadows because there's two lights.
Yeah, that's good to
Oh,
know.
so it could be a lot brighter if you didn't
Yeah.
have tape on.
It
You'd
would
a
be,
lot
yes.
brighter.
But when I put it here today, and when I'm going to be turning the lights out soon, not yet, but soon. There's still two shadows because the light is coming from two different light sources.
Huh.
If we're outdoors, we have nice one light source, just the sun, and it comes at a great distance, so that there's no. It's more direct, direct light, all from the same direction, just coming down. But yeah, I turned this on this morning. I'm like, it's got like. I'll show you after. There's like 8 shadows.
Wow.
And I'm like,
That's
that's
too
going to
advanced for us.
confuse people. I know. I think it should just be
Too outer space.
confused. So we'll start with a sphere, but I want to explain first. So I learned very young these 4. To me, it's a mantra now. I don't even have to think about it. I go highlight, core, reflected light, shadow. And if I have each of these elements in a shaded object, then I know it's properly shaded. It's containing all those elements. And they move around, and we'll see that as we try the objects. The highlight I have put in red. You're not going to balloon the highlight. There's no line there. It's kind of like we were talking like the mouth. There's no actual line there. It's just the way the planes on the face switch. This comes out, upper lip, and then that's a shaded area. So I'm doing that to show a highlight will follow basically the shape of the object often. So if it's a rounded object, it's going to be kind of crescent shape. If it's a cone, the highlight will follow the shape. It'll get a little larger at the bottom. I mean, these are they're tiny changes and they're hard to see. But just if you do that, even though you might not really see it, it will help make your drawing look more realistic. The core, this is the direction of the sun or the light coming down, so the highlight's there. And if you notice, it's not right at the edge, because that's going to be a very, very light gray, probably. And that would be the white, lighter gray. The core is on the object, away from the light. And I'll show you that when I turn on the light. Because that's not receiving the light. It's like the dark side of the moon. Like Pink Floyd, right? So, and then reflected light is when the light comes down, goes on the other side of the object, bounces off the surface that it's sitting on, and reflects back onto the object. So you would think that this would be the darkest because it's away from the light, but it's receiving some reflected light from the table. Now, as we get more complex, like you have other objects beside it, you're getting all these elements mixed. But so the highlight, the core, the reflected light, and then the cast shadow. And the cast shadow is going to be dark right under the object. It is going to get a little bit lighter as it goes away from the object because of ambient lighting. It's going to get some reflected. It's just going to kind of soften as it goes away. And then there's transition areas. There might be a transition between the highlight and the core, between the core and the reflected light. Darkest would be right here where you're on the dark side in the core, and also there's no reflected light right there. So those almost blend together when you're doing a drawing. So that's the elements I look for when I'm shading an object. Any questions on that? Now we're going to go to the objects. Actually, I might put this back here. Sorry. All right, I'm going to turn the lights out, so it's going to get dark in here. Wait, let me turn this on first. I'll be lost. Okay. That little light has 3 settings of luminosity and temperature.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Can you move your
Yep.
laptop?
Yep. I'm
Thanks.
just going to do that. Thanks. Yeah, so I can make it
Oh.
softer, lighter. I can hold it.
Oh, neat. Wow.
And there's a blend. Oh, no, that's the yellow one. The other one was the blend. Now my eyes are going crazy.
Yeah.
I see.
Now,
Like that thing.
we have a sphere.
Yeah.
And as our eyes adjust to the light, and our light is coming from this direction, so we want to think about shading it. We have to ignore, there's a line here, it's from the construction of this ball, so try to ignore that
I didn't see it, so.
construction line. Can you get the highlight from where you guys are sitting?
Yeah,
Okay. You can, let me come and point from your point of view. Oh, I had my pointy stick. I gave you each pointy stick. You can use this for measurement too. Be careful at the end though, it's really sharp. So you can see over here, this is dark. This light right here, there's a kind of lighter reflected light there, is from the table. It's reflecting back. There's also some here reflecting back a little bit.
everyone's just different direction.
Yep, here's the highlight. Ooh, sorry. Okay. The highlight. You can almost see that core area there, and then you can see that reflected light bouncing back up there.
It's very subtle. It's neat.
Yeah. So it's nice to draw that. I need to get this back on me, don't I? I'll take a picture of the ball later. Is that on me? Can you see? Is it on the?
Oh, it's on the board, yeah, right,
Yeah,
I can see your hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
You had the cameraman person.
Is it better? No good?
Yeah,
Okay. So looking from, depending on your point of view, try to figure out where the highlight is. Try to basically figure out where that core area is. So if you watch me draw, and then you can do it. So there's my core. This is going to be a little lighter along the edge. I am using my vine charcoal. I've broken off. So there's a piece of it this way. It's the best thing for shading. I didn't mention that to begin with. It really is. About an inch-sized piece. And see, the nice thing about it is that you can blend. See how nicely that blends? And I've already got some on my fingers, so I can drag that up around. And I can kind of blend this in. Now I'm looking at the transitional areas. And see how we just took a circle and made it a sphere by adding shading. As the light comes down here, it hits the ball on that side and also this side, and that's where your shadow will fall. So if you draw a line down here, that'll give you this end of it, and then down here. This is your cast shadow underneath. Gets lighter kind of as it goes out. We'll blend it together. Get rid of lines. No reflected light here in the middle. So, kind of there's your shaded sphere. Is the highlight too subtle? That's kind of subtle. Can you kind of see those elements on this? Good, I just moved it. Now, when we're thinking our animals, you can see once we understand on each basic three-dimensional shape what the shading is, then we can apply that to the different areas of the animal or the human head. Remember, we talked like the head was like kind of a sphere. Maybe we didn't. There's a cone. The nose is kind of a cone. So if you know these shapes, you can make. But we've only worked two-dimensionally, right?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry, you guys are good. You can catch up. So that's there. A cone. It's kind of the same. I don't know if you can see that, but there's two double shadows there. They overlap again because there's two little lights up here. Can you see that? One's a little lighter than the other. So cone. Rounded bottom. Even though it's sitting on a flat table, you're not seeing, if you hold a straight line this way, you can see a curve underneath there, a little bit of a curve. And the light, we'll have the highlight here. The core also kind of, it's thinner at the top and thicker at the base. So we have the highlight, the core, the reflected light here bouncing off from behind, bouncing back, and the shadow. Again on the cone, the light comes down, hits that edge of the cone here. The light comes, hits the cone. That is the direction in which, see how it comes, a direct line from the light, cone, down to the tip of that shadow. You don't see that very well from your point of view. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you, Susan, it's coming right at you.
Yeah, it's
So it comes down, that'll be my shadow there, it comes down here, and it comes out. Follows the shape of that cone. Now this is without any background. When we add a background in, say there's a table back here, you'll see that it makes the object stand out a little bit more and kind of makes a lot more sense. Right, because there's a background to it.
You're making your core shadow and your cast shadow the same value?
Depending on the object and everything. How is it here? We're getting a lot of reflected light in here. And I haven't found a solid, this was a styrofoam, I had to paint this, because the styrofoam objects are translucent and the light passes through them, which messes up the shadows. We okay on that? This is quick. I'm trying to give you some basic tools to work with. This is a cylinder. Remember how we started with the triangle, the circle, and the square? The circle becomes the sphere.
It devalued you? It was,
Oh, set for the,
it wasn't focused on you.
oh, thanks. Circle becomes a sphere, triangle becomes a cone. If you twist it on its axis, a square or a rectangle becomes a cube. This is also a circle, but it's instead of going around in every direction, this one are just circles lined up to make the cylinder. So if you have a cylinder, No, now you can't see it very well, Ellen. Yeah, you can see the end. I'm trying to make it so everyone gets at least a little bit of the end. So our cylinder is lying down. Oh, I've got it tilted, that's wonderful. The light comes down. Again, the core is away from the light. This is getting reflected light. I'm sorry, Susan, I'm in your way.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
This is getting some, again, the reflected light bounces off the table back here. It's gonna also bounce off the table back here, so there's gonna be a little lighter area there. And then the cast shadow is going to be basically like this. Is it kind of making sense? Thinking. And then the cube, am I too fast?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Anything's too fast for me.
Cube. I'm trying to not make it straight on to anybody. You have the front of the cube, goes back in space a little bit. The light comes here, so your highlight's going to be on the top of the cube. This is going to be your lightest spot.
Okay.
This is going to be your cast shadow. Anything on the side is usually reflected light. So this side will be a little lighter. This side's going to be dark. The light comes down the corner here, the corner here. Oop. That's kind of my cast shadow that way. So then we can take these shapes and use them when we're drawing our animals or our people. Ready for that? Okay. I'm going to turn the lights back on.
Okay.
It's going to be very bright. This is the biggest problem I have when I go to set it down is I touch this and it turns it on while it's closed.
Oh, yeah.
Bummer.
I'm like, eh. Any questions? Look at Prince. I did a transfer. So cool. What we do on your sheet, would you like to do the cat? Which one would be the easiest? The cat that's turning around? Back two.
Whatever.
I think he's a pretty simple shape.
Yeah.
Are we still doing charcoal?
I'm doing, yeah, because we're going to be shading
Okay.
it this time. Now, as we remember, we kind of started with a circle for his head, right? His body looks, it's a little offset. There's a little, I'm just looking at the outside line here. And this line that comes down to his chest is almost straight across. I can't get away from being in front of somebody.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Then his body, you measure the head. You can take our stick, measure the head. There's 1, 2, 3. The body's about 2 heads down. 1, 2, 3. So the base of it, he should be sitting right about here. Do you see how I did that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And his body is kind of, it's at I'm going to put this angle in here. That's going to help me with that. And then there's kind of an angle here. So it's kind of a big triangle, right? His body, it's more or less a triangle, and then it's kind of cut off. And his tail is just decoration. We talked about his ears being triangles. But we know he's not a flat object on a surface. He's a three-dimensional kitty. So by shading him, we'll make him look more real. His light seems to be coming from this direction. And I'm gauging that, again, because he's not in really great shadows, by the light on his face. Fur is hard because fur, if you notice, you get stronger shadows and lighting on flat, smooth objects than on something that has texture. Mm-hmm. Fur has a lot of texture. So you're not going to see really strong highlights and really strong shadows. It's going to be subtle. We talked about his eyes, but we'll do that in a bit later. There, kitty. So if we put the general shape of him onto our paper, I just ordered some more charcoal. I ordered some of these larger sticks. Mm-hmm. I find because I hold them this way a lot and use them to draw, if I get the skinny ones, they're more difficult to, it's not holding on to them, it's getting space, you know, so that the charcoal touches the paper and not my fingers. This one I can back off a little bit and I can have the charcoal. Okay, so now we'll kind of put him on the paper. Generally head, 1, 2, 3, it's going to be sitting down here. The back side of his head coming this way, this one coming kind of almost from the middle but over a little bit. Am I going too fast on that measurement? Here's a circle of his head. I'll do the center of the head. Where are his eyes? They're about halfway too. That's where his eyes are going to be. So now I notice if this is the center of his head, his neck comes off a little bit to the left of that center line. And I'm looking at the angles of these lines. Then I realize, as we said before, his body's almost a big triangle, but where are we going to set that triangle? Well, after here, it comes out. I'm looking at that angle. I'm looking at this angle. There's kind of an angle here. Then it kind of goes straighter, and then it comes in. And that's kind of that triangle of his back is there. It's a triangle that's been cut off. Or actually, as we start thinking three-dimensionally, it's more of a cone because he's round as well. Mm-hmm. Tail, a little decoration there. Just nice. Another aspect we wanted to think of was his backbone. But look at the picture in his backbone. It starts behind his head. It's over X-ray vision behind his head, coming around, and then it comes to his shoulder blades, and it curves from behind to, because he's sitting right in front of us, this way. And that is where the tail is going to come off, is down there. You can't really see it with all the fur on the cat, but if we understand some physiology, we can get that in. Cat eyes are not really round. They can start round, but they're not really round. I'm going to define that shape a little more. Nose, a little mouth there. His head's a little flatter at the top, so I'm just going to flatten that. I'm looking at the angle that his ears are going off. Each one's a little bit different. and it attaches back down about here. So we're kind of using the length of his face to compare things to. If you measure from the top of his head to his chin and use that as your measuring unit, you can see that the ear is about 2/3 of that. Top of his head to his chin, the ear is going to be about 2/3 of that. So they might be bigger than you thought, but by using something to measure, it's going to help with your proportions. My head looks a little big. This is the time to adjust it. It's either that or the body's a little small. Maybe I'll just make the body a little bigger. That'll be easier than moving the head. Looks better proportion. Not quite enough. So again, I want those shoulders to come out a little more. I'm going to add a little onto that. So if you need to make adjustments, this is the time. Makes him feel a little better. A little more neck on mine. How are yours coming? Snicker, snicker.
Mine's
Mine's a little scary.
Yeah, mine is too. Little outer space like.
Yeah, you can like shade his eyes a little bit, just makes it feel a little safer. It is smudgy. I didn't get you rags. Anyone need a paper towel or a rag? How many?
Not yet.
Susan's still with pencil. She's refusing to
It's true.
pick up her job. Okay. Looking good.
What are you considering?
A little tiny. Bigger.
Oh, yeah.
Did we talked about this?
Yeah, we did.
It's okay.
It's
And
probably
you're
the pencil.
drawing a vertical object on a horizontal piece of paper.
Mm-hmm. So this would
That's
make
your
more
turn.
sense.
That would have made more
Ah,
sense.
yeah.
But that's
Okay.
okay for now, but just next time.
Yeah.
If your subject matter is vertical, put it on a vertical paper. If it's horizontal,
Okay.
do it that way. Good. So you basically all have it down. Of course, when I'm drawing, I'm thinking a lot more. I'm teaching and drawing. It's not going to come out great, and I don't really care. I step way back. His ears are too big. You what?
People. A cat looks like a person. But they are people.
They are people. Pets are people.
You're smart.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. The dog last night. I mean, and she knew this morning that I was leaving. They can tell,
Oh, yeah.
even if you try to mix
Oh,
it.
yeah.
They know your routine. They watch you.
Putting the shoes on is always like, where are we going?
Yeah.
Yeah. Am I going with you now? So I try to make it very clear. Yes, walk. No, you stay. You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
because they don't hear the whole sentence. They
Yeah.
just they look at you, tilting their heads like. If you say a whole sentence to them, they're trying to find that one word that they know,
Uh-huh.
which is usually walk or treat.
Uh-huh.
My ears were too big. I'm going to bring the ears down. Making adjustments. This is why at the beginning, you want to draw fairly lightly. Wasn't that her name in Breakfast at Tiffany's, Holly Golightly?
Yeah.
Huh. Our minds do such amazing things. These things come to me, I'm like, wait a minute. Now, we have this nice picture of this cat that is flat. There's very little shading on this. But because we just kind of practice some of our shading, we can apply that to make the cat seem more realistic. You got his neck's pretty big, I think. See how much of his neck compared to more is the
Yeah, I
shoulders
got it.
and the body.
He's too
long.
He needs, I think he needs more body.
Ah, fatten him up.
Yeah, so I would come, it's more than three. One. What did I do? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Well, no, that's right, but maybe even a little further down. And then notice this goes up higher. I think if this haunch came up higher here. So double check some of those measurements. But it doesn't have to be perfect.
Good.
Especially the first ones.
After that.
Then you have
Then
perfection.
that's perfect.
People think artists that are selling and gaining awards and everything, just you see all of their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe 10% of your stuff comes out really good.
Yeah.
About 70% comes out pretty good, and the rest destroy it. People go, oh, don't destroy that one. I had one painting I almost destroyed. For some reason, it was on one of the gallery walls, and it sold the next week.
Wow.
I'm like,
That's so interesting.
I know. I didn't like it, and these people liked it.
Yeah.
But it's my painting, so well now it's theirs. But yeah, I'm apt to just get rid of something if it's not up to my personal standards. You wonder what Da Vinci and Da Vinci, Mona Lisa, he worked on her for decades.
Really?
Decades.
Really?
He carried her with him everywhere he went. There's more than one copy. Well, it's not a copy. He did more than one version. And the version that's in the Louvre right now, somebody
X-ray.
50, 100 years ago cleaned it,
Oh.
and her eyebrows are gone. That's why she has no eyebrows. She actually originally had eyebrows. They've done x-rays and things like that and found eyebrows. Or the shades of eyebrows.
Imagine
Yeah.
being that person.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Imagine being that person.
I heard of a photographer too that went into Picasso's studio, and he had permission to photograph a lot of Picasso, and he pulled out like a drawing and there was dust on it.
Oh,
Oh my God.
Ouch.
I don't know if this is a legend or if it's really true, but I remember hearing about that because it's like, yeah, don't want to be that person.
Well, yeah.
Picasso drawing? What Picasso drawing? I didn't see any.
Yeah. What you talking about?
Then you think about the Nazis.
Oh, gosh.
And he hated
Intentional, yeah.
Yeah.
modern art. I
Yeah.
mean, he was destroying tons.
Things left and right.
Picasso's, and he did like, I think Dali was, I don't know how you like Dali.
Anything you didn't understand.
He went to art school and got kicked out.
There's a reason for that.
Have you seen, wait, am I thinking Hitler's? Yeah,
Yeah,
he
I
was
went to art school.
decent drawer. He was not bad. So people say like, what if he had stayed in art school?
Yeah.
Really?
All right, so let's consider, we're going to make up shading now because the cat doesn't have any. And it doesn't have to be strong in your drawing, but you want it because it's going to indicate, instead of a flat shape, circle, like this, instead of a flat circle, it's going to indicate that this cat has 3 dimensions. He's sitting as a solid object in space instead of just the outline. And the outlines are nice. You guys all have nice outlines. She's got his stripes already. No stripes, that's decoration. You want first the form. That's vital. You gotta get the form down first. Make sure of the proportions and the relationships, the size of the body to the size of the head, the ears to the head, make sure those work. Then get that 3-dimensional form of the body. Once that's down, then you can worry about little details. Because, for instance, if you have if this cloth and this backboard were in light, you could see quite a bit of difference here on a value scale. This is light, this is middle dark. But if this is in shadow, See if I can do this. If there's a shadow there, see, this is the same values in light, and this is it down here in shadow.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And see how different it, look how the
Yeah.
white is a lot darker.
Yeah.
The blue is a lot darker. So even though they're the same in reality, when you put light and shadow onto them, you can see that it's different. So that's going to affect. So if you were doing highlights on this side, his hair is really light, it's going to be this. But if it's on this side, the lightest area is going to be that middle tone. Am I explaining that clearly? I think this. I hope I didn't mess up her stuff. I just, she had all this stuff out here today. I'm like, wait a minute. So let's pretend, okay? Light's coming from here. On the body, where is the highlight going to be? Basically.
Shoulder?
Kind of on the shoulder and this back area, which I've already messed up with my lines, but that's okay. I'm not correcting, I'm making highlights. So that's going to be lighter. And then the darker area, that cast shadow, no, the core, sorry, the highlight, the core is going to be on the body but away from the light. And we don't really see that on the cat. So we're going to lightly, this is not finished, but this is going to be in shadow. This part's going to be kind of in shadow. Do you see how I'm kind of thinking that spherical shape again? The highlight here, the core down here. And we get messy at this point. So try to keep your hand off your paper if possible. Same with the face. We don't see it on the face. Oh, I switched where the light was coming, sorry. This doesn't go with the light in the picture, does it? On that side of his face. Now all I'm doing is kind of adding shadow in according to the rules of shading. And his tail, I say, will be almost all in shadow. His tail looks really small because there's foreshortening going on here. His tail, for instance, would be this long. I have to do it this way. It would be coming out and it's that long, but it's actually bending out toward us, so it makes that before the bend seem shorter, and then that tip is going up and away from us, so it makes it shorter. It doesn't look like this.
Yeah.
Okay, it goes like this. Instead of all the way out here, it's like that. So it looks smaller. And of course, there's a cast shadow under him. See, he's on the table. Sitting on the table. This is where I find my pastel people. Who's having fun with the charcoal and getting messy?
Yay.
I'll get that wrong. This is up in the air, so that would be shadow up in the air. There we go. There are many different ways of shading too. I'm doing a wide flat shading. If you have just a point, you can do hatching and cross hatching to shade by making lines go across each other. Stippling, you can do it with little dots,
My cat was pissed off.
which would drive me crazy, but here is Surratt. His paintings are fascinating. See, I pull in this art history. His paintings are fascinating because they're like what the original televisions were. If you looked at them microscopically, the screen, there were 3 dots. right near each other, kind of in a triangle. Red, yellow, actually it wasn't red, yellow, and blue, but it was the light colors, which are magenta, cyan, and like chartreuse. So, and they were on a white background. As an image passed in front of that, if I'm walking with a red shirt, then the chartreuse and the cyan, the blue and the yellow one would kind of get smaller, and the red one would get bigger and stronger. So it would make that appearance that there's something moving across the television. Then Zenith came out with the Trinitron. You don't remember this, I'm sorry. This is all of a sudden the color was so much more vibrant. Do you know what they did? They surrounded those colors with black instead of white.
Interesting.
And it made the
So
color more
vibrant.
intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, there was an in-between stage, and then they went with high definition. And all of a sudden, a lot of those things, like you look at older shows, you don't see every little wrinkle. You look at old news programs, you don't see that high definition. Bob Ross and his predecessor, Bill Alexander, painted in high contrast so the old television cameras could pick up. And people say, if you look at those paintings in person, they're so contrasty that they're not really that
They're
pretty.
not lovely, yeah.
They look great on TV.
Interesting.
Yeah. I know all these things tie in. So then within each of these shapes, I mean, this is going to be a little more away from, this is a reflected light. So the light's coming down, hitting the table, bouncing back. But if you notice, I still kind of want to keep track of where his shoulder is. He's got a bend. And this was the general shading. And I can now start to define it a little bit more. A little darker. A little more here, a little more there. I am still not thinking about fur. Right, I'm still defining his form with shading.
Mine looks like a person too.
Oh, interesting.
Then, when you're getting toward the end, remember the difference between the middle tone and the light, whether it's and the white in light or in shadow. So if you have fur here, you want to keep this really light on this side, even where the darker fur is. But over here, the lightest will be dark. So you're going to have darker is going to be dark. And you can add in the fur and make it go in the direction that it's growing in. And you don't have to put in all the fur. Just suggest it, and the viewer's eye will finish the details. And, there might be more down here, middle tone. So then you go and you have fun with them. Then you can do your details. But I'm still doing shading, and I'm not doing the stripes yet. That's a change in color, not in form at all. The whiskers on this side, this is fun. His whiskers over here, well, it doesn't show in the picture, but if I'm going by my rules of shading, I'm going to make his whiskers here dark, but the whiskers on the other side are going to be in the light, catching light. So I used my eraser pen.
Yeah.
And then you started with a huge form, you went to, here's the neck, here's the butt, here's the head. Now we're getting down, now I'm gonna work on the eyes. So start with the largest forms and work smaller and smaller slowly.
No, I don't.
My eyes are too close together. His eyes have to be further apart. You guys whispering about back there, I hear you whispering.
I said an eraser pen sounds like a handy thing to have.
Yep, you can take your kneaded eraser.
Oh, I don't have one.
Okay.
I just got a
What kind do you have?
white thing.
Yeah, and the only way to make that sharper is by actually breaking
Okay.
it. Yeah,
Okay.
and then you get a sharp edge. It's kind of what I do to the art gum eraser.
Uh-huh.
You can see I break them off
Uh-huh.
sometimes,
Okay.
so I can have a thin,
Mm-hmm.
sharp point. I'm great at that. First thing I'm gonna do is measure, or estimate about the measure. He's basically Yeah, he's almost in a square as well. So if I keep that in mind, he's going to fit in here. I want very quickly to figure out the proportions of his body to his head, because his head's further away, so we're in a perspective as well. 1, 2, 3, about 4. So if I know his head is about 1/4 the size of his body, but see, these marks are so light you can almost not see them, but I'm knowing that his head will fit over here somewhere. It's more neck than it is head. You can hardly see his head. And just, I see almost a drawing in the air. It's like I'm thinking as I'm going along. I'm not really making final lines yet. I'm getting a rough idea. And I'm using these angles to help me place where he is. So that's going to be, you guys can't see the picture, but when I put the video up, I'll do a picture-in-picture of this. His back is about the height of the top of his head. His butt angles down to his tail. Can you see the angles I'm talking about when I do this? Like there's kind of an angle there. But can you see the picture?
Yeah.
Not very well, I'm sorry. It is printed up in my printer. So I'm seeing that angle there across his back, the angle that goes up to his neck, the angle of his foot. His foot is almost vertical, and then that chest angle is a little bit. So I'm always comparing chest angle to foot angle. Tail again is kind of extra. His top leg's tucked up under him. Compared to this length of his body, what's the height of his body? I think that needs to be a little fatter. So all the time, these are the things I'm thinking of, is how is this in relationship to that? How is that comparing to what is around it and near it? His haunch is right about there. This comes down, goes up to his neck. Ears are going to be somewhere in here. Head too fast. Nose. Angle past his eyes down to his nose. This is hitting funny. I'm finding that my fine charcoal is curved a bit because it's not hitting regularly. So to fix that, I can put it on the side of my paper and really rub it until it, see how there's a gap in the middle? If I just do a straight, now it's going away. I'm sanding it down so it's flatter. His little mouth thing, his little nose goes here. Okay, angle down. And then I can think that's kind of the head. I go to the gym and I do exercises with weights like this because holding your arm up for a long time, it gets sore.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I gotta strengthen that muscle. This is that furry belly there. There's nothing there but skin. Then I step back. About this stage, I step back because I want to check the proportions. His head, again, is a little small because it's further away.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not looking at him directly straight on. I'm looking at him at a little bit of an angle this way.
Right. It's like his back haunches is the prominent.
Yeah. But what caught me, I love this, and he did this all the time, this cat, he still does, is that paw just hanging down. You just hang it down off from the windowsill. I'm throwing in a couple of shades here. This helps me know, you know, there's a big sphere here, kind of, I've got a long cylinder here, but we're not really thinking, we haven't gone over detail the three-dimensional shapes. So these shadows will help me kind of define his form as well. And it will keep me from getting caught up in too many details too early by saying, this is all in shadow, this is all in shadow. Yeah, I'm not used to drawing so high. I've set my easel down lower recently.
Stretching.
See my curve here? I'm thinking this is his neck, it comes around. This is the shoulder, it comes down. So even when I'm shading, I'm still thinking form. Belly. Tuck in, tail. Tail's a long cylinder. He's got a little crookedy tail there. I kind of like that. Ouch. Too thick. Adjust it now. I can adjust it quickly. Step back again. But you can almost begin to see him coming together.
Yeah.
This windowsill, you can see that angle in the photo. It's not straight across. You can see it's slight angle. And that sits him down on something. Fur. The whole tail's almost all in shadow. So what I'm doing here is sculpting the drawing with my finger. I'm making it a little smaller by just removing some of that charcoal. Oh, see that irregular again? I did see how it's skipping?
Oh, yeah.
It's because this charcoal is slightly curved, but I had sanded down this side. But now it's getting thin and harder for me to hold on to. But I'm glad you guys pointed out about the soft charcoal, because just totally went over my head telling my students about that.
Yeah, when I was in the store, I didn't even notice that there was different, they moved it. It's kind of subtle on the package, what kind of charcoal
It really is. Like, I just came over and I had trouble finding it.
Yeah, it's little.
What she's talking about is that the charcoal comes in different hardnesses. So this one says hard at the bottom.
I can't remember what I got.
Mine doesn't say
And
anything.
yours doesn't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I just ordered some today online. One I took a chance with, and one I bought this that I know was, I better go check that. I hope I didn't get hard.
Well, I mean, it's good for starting. It's very,
Yeah.
very light. It's not that great for shading.
Is that other one working
oh, yeah,
better?
This is good and black.
Okay. The triangle of the ears. I'm not even thinking triangle at this point. Yep, can't do it. I get in the habit of testing my stuff on the edge of the paper, even when I was doing good, like things that was serious paintings and things, because usually if you're going to frame it, that's going to be covered.
Uh-huh.
So it's, or you have a piece of scrap paper off to the side is another good thing. I'm looking at the shadow on his side of his face. On that at his nose, I just took the charcoal and I kind of tilted it so I was putting more pressure on the right side of this than on the left side. So that's, and I'm thinking that right side of the charcoal following this contour here. So you can do that as well. I mean, it's a piece of burnt wood and there's so much you can do with it. Fascinating. Here I'm taking the charcoal, I'm just twisting it like that, holding one end kind of still, and it gave me that little triangular shape of his ear there. Then you don't have to draw it all out carefully. Cast shadow from the ear, where is it? shoulder blade, a little darker. So see how I'm getting darker each time? I kind of started with a middle tone, and then I'm making it darker. I'll also send you the value scale, which I hadn't done. I like to teach before I send the value scale, or other things. So if 10 is black, 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 and 1 is white, then you have a gradation of tones all the way down. And I'll send you a better picture of that. Okay, folds the skin, shadow in his butt, more on the tail. And now I want to kind of follow, this is a long cylinder. So if I do my marks like curve like that, even though they don't show a lot over what's already there, it's helping create that rounded form as I'm thinking. And again, I'm not thinking the stripes on his tail. That would come later. But when you do that, when we talked about whether this contrast is in light or if it's in shadow, that's where it would make a difference. These colored stripes here and the ones up here are going to look different because this one's down in more shadow and this one is in the light.
Do people ever mix charcoal with a colored media?
Say again?
Do people ever mix charcoal with a colored media?
I use this under my pastels. This is what I start my drawings with.
And then you pastel over it?
Yep. Watercolor, not so much. I usually use a pencil for that. You can use it under oil and acrylic.
Oh.
You might want to fix it before that because it is particles of wood. They will get picked up somewhat. So when I'm doing, if I did something like this under a pastel and I didn't want, as I swept across it with the other color, I didn't want this to be picked up, I would fix this. Fixing is with a spray that kind of keeps these things in place. It's called a fixative.
Is there a reason that you would do that with charcoal rather than just with the pastels?
I'm just really comfortable with, because, yeah.
Easier gradation?
Easy, well, I'm comfortable with it, but also I can make adjustments faster.
Oh, okay.
So if I do this underdrawing and I go, ugh, this is not quite right, if I had pastel on here, it would be more permanent, where the vine charcoal is easier to move around.
I see.
I did used to draw with hard pastels. Don't know why I got away from that.
You use a chalky kind of pastel, so
Soft pastels.
pastel.
Soft pastel is probably the purest medium out there. All paints are made from pigment, ground, dirt, ground, other things like ultramarine blue was originally made from lapis lazuli stones. They'd grind them down, or you take ochre, like just dirt. I've made pastels from dirt, grind it down, and make pastels out of it. In oil paint, you add oils. In acrylic, you add a plastic medium. In watercolor, you add honey and glycerin. Pastel uses a tiny bit of a natural gum called gum tragacanth, which is like it's a tree sap that's natural, comes from the Mideast. You can also use gum arabic. And you mix that in, but just enough of it to hold the dust together in a stick. Otherwise, only thing in there is pigment. So it's the purest. I started really getting serious about it a while back because I find it the most versatile. You can put it on a painting, you can wash it down with water and alcohol, make it almost look like a watercolor, but then you can also build it up so it looks like a pastel. You can make a thickened pastel, almost like it's an oil. I mean, you put non-reflective glass over it and it can look like an oil painting from a distance. And it's more permanent because, yes, you could brush it off, but once you frame it, it's more permanent. Oil doesn't dry, it hardens, and it tends to crack as it hardens because it's usually on a moving canvas. Pastel doesn't do that. It stays, you can see pastels from the 14 and 1600s and they're still just as vibrant now as they were back then.
What is fixative?
Fixative depends on the fixative. There's one that's made from casein, which is milk-based. It's a natural protein in milk. That is non-toxic, and then the others are kind of toxic. So I think they're in the, not shellac family, but something like that.
Sort of an alcohol basis or something.
Probably petroleum, but I don't know. That's a good question. I need to
I just
learn
wonder
that.
about, you know, like if you use them, you know, in a closed room.
The fumes, no, you want to take it outside if you're
Oh,
fixing.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Except for the one, that Spectrafix, which is casein based. That one's okay to
Oh.
use inside.
Oh.
But if I need to fix something, I'll take it outside. You start off to the side. With my kids, when I started, I just used hairspray.
Uh-huh.
You know, very lightly, very lightly. Don't let it get thick. And
Hairspray.
hairspray would hold it on then. Of course, that's not very pure. It's got other chemicals in it.
And it smells.
Well, and fixative smells too, but it's not, it's a temporary thing. A good fixative is more permanent. Now, he's not like this, but I'm going to put a darker background around him, just so you can kind of see. And that something like this would emphasize how he's highlighted. I think I just messed up on the shape of his face, but. So if I want the highlights on the top of his fur to really, really show, the best thing to do is create some sort of contrast to that. And even though I haven't finished this yet, you can see by just putting that background in, it makes him look like the highlight is here.
Uh-huh.
Instead of white against white, it's white against something else. Then I can start coming in maybe with drawing with the tip of my tool. Adding his nose and stuff in. Start defining him a little more. Have a good rag. I have microfiber rags, which I want to buy more, but I'm not going to because they are microplastics. But I did research and found out that they say don't toss them out, just keep using them rather than buying others. If I were going to do it over, I would stay with cotton face cloths and stuff. So now I can take, my eraser and add in some fur here and there.
Mhm.
Or use the other eraser. This one's fun. Couple whiskers catching the light. This is distracting, so I'll get rid of that. Make him furry, little belly fur. Look, this right now, it's picking up some of the charcoal, and I'm not cleaning the eraser, I'm letting it smudge. So it's like dragging some of that color down. So you can do that. Let's make his knee a little furry here. I did, when I painted this picture for her, the shadow I made basically in purples and blues, even though he's an orange cat. And then his highlights were more in orange, because I knew she liked purples, so. And this angle is not right. This would be in kind of a shadow too, all under here, that shell. The top of it would be catching light, but not all of it. So you can see now, and then you could take the next step. You could keep it as loose as you want, or you can tighten it up as much as you want. How are your dogs coming?
Not very well.
Try drawing bigger. Sometimes drawing small. This is pretty good though. I think this is nice,
It is.
guys. Nice
Yeah.
cat. Drawing small sometimes is hard,
Should spread it out.
but at least you started on a horizontal this time, which is great.
I can't watch and draw at the same time.
I did mine too soon, too. I
Oh,
think you told me that.
well.
No, I love him.
Not really. This one down here.
It's great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. It looks like you get a smile. I love it. There's it.
Now this looks impossible. I mean, I guess you would
It'd
just
be
have,
easy because he's just
Well-
black with eyes.
Basically.
well, yeah,
Yeah, you're not seeing shading on him, and I think
Yeah.
I probably increased the contrast on the picture, so this is to see the basic shape,
okay,
which is why that was the intent of that.
okay.
I like this dog, but I'm gonna change him out because that coloring is too distracting. It's not work. You see how big, well, I drew for the class, but I mean, I've got a full sheet of paper here. So fill your paper. I will send out these other photos you can play with. I'll send them in color and then you can decide if you want to, is that good? You can print them in black and white or print them in color.
Is it easier to try to draw, like to copy a picture? It seems like it might be more straightforward if you print in black and white. Or does it really matter? Since we're not.
I think
we're
at
not
this
trying
point,
to replicate it into color.
right, you're just looking at the values, the shading, that stuff. So I would print it in black and white.
Okay.
He doesn't look
Um,
like him, but-
The colors are going to be distracting.
Yeah.
You're going to start. I can make it into black and white before I send it out.
Well, I can print it in black and white easily. Then
Then you have it both ways.
I'll have it both ways if I ever get to color.
Well, I hope you get to color. You're all doing
One
really
step
well.
at a time.
So I'm sending that. I'm going to send a value scale. Make a note. I skimmed you through three-dimensional and shading forms very quickly. You all did very well on that.
Yes.
Okay. We're taking and applying a lot of concepts to faces and animals, but the concepts are going to apply to anything you draw, anything you look at. If you're doing a building with trees around it, you go, oh, what are the basic forms? Okay, I've got the square. I have a triangle. I have, a circle or a sphere or whatever. So you can break things down into those forms. This is boring. You want to make more interesting forms. But the same thing with the shading. Okay, light's coming from here. This side of the tree is going to be dark. This side of the cylinder, that's the trunk, is going to be dark. I've got a porch. That's going to be in shadow. So that's going to be dark. So you can apply these. It's going to have a cast shadow over here that's going to follow the shape of the building and the distance from, how the light falls. All these concepts can be applied to anything. You guys signed up for Pets and People, so that's kind of why I was doing it. It's kind of a multi-layered class.